Alright, so here I am about to watch the final episode of Loki. I've really enjoyed this season so far. If I turn off the part of my brain that was expecting good queer rep, because that hasn't been great, more on that later. But if I put that aside, if I put queerbaiting aside, I've really enjoyed the season so far. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what's on the other side of this door. My guess is that another variant of Loki is behind it. That's what I'm putting on, that's what I'm saying now. Putting my flag down. And other than that, I'm just gonna get right into it. Like, let's see what happens. All right, starting in 3, 2, 1, go. Classic Loki was amazing.
Way to go, Tic-Tac!
Isn't that the music from like Captain America? Dancing with Penny? Is this just like part of the Marvel title that they're doing now?
What is grief if not love persevering?
The WandaVision line. If only they'd known it was gonna be such a hit. I guess they did since I put it in here. It almost looks like the sacred timeline is curved, which would be cool if it was just like an infinite circle. Oh my lord, Miss Minutes.
Who's impressed?
He who remains.
Definitely has to be a Loki.
He created all.
Right? He who remains?
Controls all. You want the Infinity Gauntlet? Yours. Throne of Asgard? No problem. What about you, Missy? All those years on the road?
This isn't gonna work on Sylvie. She only wants one thing.
How would you like to wake up tomorrow with just a lifetime of happy memories?
Oh, okay, well that is kind of tempting.
It's crazy, but he could make it work. All.
Can she just like voice act for everything? I don't know, I don't even know who it is. I know a lot of people have mentioned her name, so I guess she's famous and beloved.
We write our own destiny now.
Oh, sure.
This is my first time falling in love with her work. It's a really beautiful shot, beautiful set. It's a small detail, but it'd be cool if the Lokis were left-handed. I mean, I feel like it would fit their vibe. Is this Kang the Conqueror? It is. Okay, I was wrong.
This is what? Loki?
Her name is Sylvie, just saying.
Beyond that, you're in danger to me.
Is that what you think? Let's see.
Ooh. Mobius got beat real quick. Bold move, Loki. It's so straight.
But on the
Ooh, dang. That's what you do. That was a ballsy end credit scene. we're not giving you any more story, but we are letting you know to come back. Wow. Okay. Gonna pause, then come back with thoughts. All right, so let's get the queer baiting stuff out of the way, because as I said at the top, I can't really enjoy the show when I'm so deeply aware of the queer baiting, so let's just talk about it, and then put it aside, and then talk about this episode and talk about the show. Okay, so queer baiting wise, this show failed at queer representation on almost every possible level. In a neutral, not a neutral way, but in a falls flat way. It's at least not as actively harmful as some things in the past, but that's really not saying much. They could have done better. Nothing about Loki was gender fluid, right? It put in this file that he was sex fluid. He didn't even do that, right? So I'm not gonna go into super detail about what that means, because there are other YouTubers who are doing like in-depth stuff, in-depth videos on it, and I'll put links on that for those videos in the description. They already did one at the beginning, and I believe that they are gonna do a follow-up soon. So keep an eye on their channel to get the more in-depth breakdown. But basically, gender fluid means you have a fluid sense of gender that changes from time to time. And in the comics and in Norse mythology, it is shown that that is what Loki is. Loki doesn't just change their sex, doesn't just change their body, right? They actually change their gender. When they are a woman, they use she, her pronouns and fully feel, you know, as a woman. When they are a man, they are a man. When they're a horse, they're a horse. But you know, that's not part of being genderqueer, but funny thing from mythology. Because Loki is a shapeshifter, they can also be sex fluid in the sense that they can change their body. But you know, most human beings aren't sex fluid. You pretty much maybe get like 1 or 2 changes with a bunch of medical help. But as of right now, current state of technology, not really a thing in human society. But gender fluidity absolutely is, always has been, and this character was not gender fluid, right? You never saw Tom Hiddleston's Loki change their sense of gender. You never saw Sophia DiMartino's Sylvie change her sense of gender, and it was even implied at one point that Sylvie was born a girl, so you couldn't even say that this is like a trans Loki story. It's not even gender fluid, but maybe like a trans woman story. You don't even get that. And then Loki's also supposed to be bisexual. They establish it in one line, but they could have easily put it into text. BlackGayComicGeek had the suggestion that you could have had the bar scene where Loki is like hooked, like kisses a guy, kisses a girl, and then that would have like visually established Loki's bisexuality. But even better, if you're gonna have a storyline where a Loki falls in love with another Loki, and you want to show that both Lokis are gender fluid and both Lokis are bi, then just have 2 Lokis who are masculine presenting fall in love. That would have been the ballsy move, right? And then also at some point in the narrative, have them swap between genders just on the fly, just showing like they love each other no matter what form they're in. Like the fact that maybe that even is what bonds them, that they can see each other, the true selves in all these different forms that they're able to take. They put on a facade for everyone. They can fool everyone, but they can't fool each other, right? That could have been a thing. They didn't do that, so bad. And then what makes it queer baiting is that it was clearly like pushed by the creators and by the actors who maybe just didn't understand what gender fluidity meant when they were like, yeah, we're definitely exploring gender fluidity. Maybe they were like, because we have a female version of Loki, that means we're exploring gender fluidity. That's not what that is. So it makes it queer baiting because, or queer catching actually, because the show promised queer rep and then didn't deliver. So that sucks. And then also on a side note, Loki was was the most flashy and flamboyant presenting masculine character in the MCU. And I didn't notice this at first, but once it got pointed out to me that in order for Loki to be the star of his own series, I'm gonna use he because, no, you know what, I'm gonna be defiant, I'm gonna use they, because Loki's supposed to be genderqueer. In order for Loki to be the star of a series, they had to be dressed more conservatively. And now every time I see Tom Hiddleston's Loki in this like grubby brown manila button-up shirt and pants, suit pants, just made me mad. You know, like, what if Loki had gotten to the Void in episode 5 and had been like, well, I'm not part of the TVA anymore, I'm gonna reclaim my identity, right? Had met the other Lokis, and as part of meeting the other Lokis, like, reclaimed their own identity and, like, got a new costume that was similar to their capes and their, like, finery. Would have been great, but no. You got a sword, you got your ancestral blade, but you couldn't get a costume that fit your personality. Okay. So all those aspects of the show, not great. And then you heard in the reaction, even the kiss between Sophia DiMartino's Sylvie and Tom Hiddleston's Loki, I'm like, I actually am on board with this ship. I like this ship, but I couldn't fully enjoy it because I'm like, this is the straightest, most hetero thing that y'all could have done. This is literally the love between a biological male who can see, like, has only ever presented as a man, and a biological female who is only ever presented as a woman, according to what y'all said. And you say she's born the goddess of chaos, and they fall in love. This is the most cishet thing you could have, this is the most cishet choice you could have made. So there's that. All right, so now putting queerbaiting aside, did I like it? Yes. Oh man, the music was doing so much work. I ended this episode so hyped. I was so drawn in. I was intrigued by the Citadel at the end of time. Oh, it was nice. At first, Kang, I don't think he got named, but it's Kang, a version of Kang, right? I was like, what is this actor doing? I wasn't quite sure, and then I got it. I really liked, actually, that he was able to bring an element of madness to it that I personally didn't find offensive. Like, I don't think he, like, took what so often people do, is that they take traits from real mental illnesses and then just throw them all together, whether they make sense or not, and use the most extreme versions of it and be like, I'm crazy. And he didn't do that. He managed to convey a sense of madness of someone who has been alone for lifetimes, for eons, as he said, without leaning into negative stereotypes. At least that was the impression I got. So by the time he was like, I fibbed, I actually don't know what happens from here on out, I was on board with his performance. I really liked it. That apple kind of annoyed me at first because I was like, it makes you mumble the words. I mean, as a trained actor, he like articulated around it pretty well, but that first scene, it was getting to me a little bit. But yeah, I liked him. I liked him as a character. And then the series as a whole, did I like the series? Yes. I am surprised how well it grew. Like, the first episode really grounded you in this tedious bureaucracy. Yes, you were in a new world, but it was also like a frustratingly small world in some ways because he had to go through, because Loki had to go through that bureaucratic system. And I like that they did that, because now by the time you get to the Citadel at the end of time and literally you see the timelines branching apart, it just felt like they had expanded the universe so much, and it really helped contribute to that epic feel by starting in such a small, limited location and then ending with such a big setting, big in its implications and in its possibilities. It supported the feel of this being an epic climax, and I really like that. Like I said, though, I think the music was doing a lot. I'm not an expert on sound design or, on music, but I was just so aware of how the music was making me feel. It was great. I loved episode 3. I know episode 3 was controversial, but I really loved just taking some time and spending that time with Loki and Sylvie, and I liked seeing how they solved problems differently. Like, some complaints that I heard from other reviewers was that, we didn't learn anything about Sylvie. And by anything, I think they meant like specific events in the backstory. Now, backstory, a lot of people I think have a really a limited view of what backstory is, or I should say actually not limited enough in some ways, right? So backstory is not every event that ever happened to a character before their moment in the story, because as much as characters can feel like real people, they aren't real people. They are tools for telling a story. And so backstory, when we say backstory, I think what we actually mean are ghosts. And I love this concept of ghosts. It's from John Truby's, I think, Anatomy of a something. I'm gonna put the link in the description. And then there was a great Just Right video that really helped me, grounded me in understanding what ghosts are, and then they become really important in how I do my writing. I think they are one of the best tools for writers. But basically a ghost is, actually, you should go from the motivation, right? A character has a motivation. That's what makes them a character in a story. They want something, and there's something in the way that's keeping them from getting it. Those are the two things you need for a story, right? If you want to break down your motivation a little bit more, you have a lie that the character believes. They believe something, and this is driving them to want something in the story, right? So Sylvie believing that the TVA was responsible for her pruning the timeline, and the only way that she could fix it was to get vengeance on them, right? She has a lot of things that might be right about that, but I don't know, I guess the jury's still out. We don't know if that was wrong. Like, maybe there were other ways to fix it, and her not being willing to consider that may have been a bad thing, or maybe not. I guess we'll see as the MCU develops. But anyway, so that's her belief, that's driving that motivation, right? The ghost is the event in their life that made them believe that formed that belief, right? It is usually a painful event for the character. In Sylvie's case, it was the moment that she was pruned and her world was taken away from her and she was turned into a fugitive, right? So when we say like we want backstory, the only really important part of a character's backstory that we really need to know is the ghost. What is motivating their actions in the present? What is motivating their actions in the story? Anything else, we don't really need it. So when a lot of people are like, oh, we didn't learn Sylvie's backstory, I'm like, we learned everything we really needed to learn. We learned that she was pruned when she was young. I think maybe it would have been helpful to get that scene of her being dragged out of Asgard and then brought into the TVA that we got in episode 4. Like, maybe that could have been in episode 3, but honestly, like, even if it was, I don't feel like that's what I needed to know most about Sylvie. I feel like what I needed to know most about Sylvie was how she solves problems in the present. What is her motivation and how does she go about trying to get that? And I think episode 3 was a great demonstration of that. We learned that she was very clear, I'm not here to take over the TVA. I want to bring it down. I want to destroy it. And you got to see how she solved problems, that she's someone that goes straight at a problem head first and just tries to force her way through it. And it was more clear how she solved problems because she was contrasted against Tom Hiddleston's Loki. And you got to see that he solved problems very differently, always trying to find a way around it, right? It's kind of like Aang versus Toph, air versus earth. Someone who stand my ground, going straight at it, versus someone who's there's always got to be a way around. And so having those two try to solve this problem together really introduced you to everything that you needed to know that set up this finale of how they react and to adversity and how they try to solve problems differently. And that was the thing you needed to know about those two, because we knew that she was a Loki. So it was really important to establish early on how she was different from the Loki that we knew. And so I just loved seeing them. I loved the quiet moments. I loved the fighting moments. I loved everything about episode 3, one of my favorite episodes in the series. Let's see. I think then a quick thing, we could just wrap up and, let's talk about each of the characters. I loved Mobius. His chemistry with Loki was excellent. I love that he was able to call Loki on all the time. I think they really established that well, that he's Loki's equal, and that's great. And I think Loki needed that. And so their relationship was super, super heartwarming. Judge Renslayer. Judge Renslayer was 7 out of 10 for me. Usually I use out of 5. I would say Judge Renslayer was a 3 out of 5, right? She was a 3 out of 5 antagonist. She very rarely directly antagonized them, except in episode 4. and we weren't sure what her motivations were. I would say like this episode did the most for her character and making it clear that she just needs to believe in the mission. But yeah, most of the time I was just like, I'm not super clear on why you're doing what you're doing, and you pose like some roadblocks but not ultimate problems. Seems like everything she does got retconned a second later. Like her making those moves to prune people, those were serious moves. But then right at the end of that episode, we learned that you don't die when you're pruned. So unfortunately, I don't think the narrative did her any favors. Hunter B20, I think. I wish she had a name instead of just a number, so it was easier to remember. You know, I really liked the two standout moments I think she got, right? When she's like crying in the rain and she's like remembering her life, and then when she's confronting Judge Renslayer, you could really see the quality of the actor who was playing that character. And so I just wish she had got more to do. Yep. I don't think we got to see her enough. So there's that. And I loved all the Lokis in the Void. Classic Loki was great. Kid Loki was intriguing enough that I'm looking forward to seeing him again, and I'm sure we will, in like our Teen Avengers or something like that. And Alligator Loki was a really cool addition to the MCU. Whoever came up with that should be proud of themselves. It's going to be, I think, a fan favorite. Just like Frog Thor is a fan favorite, from now on Alligator Loki is going to be a fan favorite. So pretty cool. And then of course, Sylvie herself. I love Sylvie. I was on board with this character from the minute she walked on the screen. Well, not from the minute. In episode 2, I was like, okay. But then episode 3, I was done. I was like, yep, I love her. She's great. I want to know more about her. Where are we going from here? And she never really disappointed. I would like to know, where is she gonna go from here? Now that she's made this huge decision. But yeah, I liked her. And I think that's pretty much it. So let me go ahead and try to put these episodes in order of the ones I liked most to least. It's almost just in series order, because I think they did a good job of like building up intrigue and interest each time. I would say this one's definitely my favorite. I think this was the best one. Then I would say I'm gonna go with 4. I think 4 was super impactful. Then I'm gonna go with 3. I loved 3. Then I'm gonna go with 5 because I loved the Lokis. Then I'm gonna go with 2 because the Apocalypse thing was really fun and really cool reveal. Then I'm gonna go with 1. And I loved 1 too. Like, I don't think any episode was below average, but it just had the least going on because it was just, you know, a setup episode. Not its fault, just where it was. So yeah, I liked this series if I were to remove the queerbaiting brain. And I'm looking forward to season 2. And I'm looking forward to seeing how, you know, Kang shows up in other properties and in Ant-Man, which the MCU is so good at building anticipation for other things. So that's really awesome. And oh, just a final note, because it was the final part of the episode. It was heartbreaking that Mobius doesn't remember him, and that the TVA got reset and Mobius doesn't remember him. Loki x Mobius, best ship of the show. And yeah, I really want to see what happens in season 2, and hopefully Mobius and Loki can be besties or more again. So yeah. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this reaction and breakdown, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Please give the video a like, comment, share with your friends, help my channel grow. I would love to do more of these and just share my thoughts on more stories with you. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.